This will freeze up your swing, make your swing flat and cause all sorts of problems. So the knees are slightly flexed. Waggle your toes. Notice how soft I am. I bring my elbows close together, stay in motion all the time, and make sure with a 7 or 8 iron that the balance is even, the weight is even on 50-50 on both feet. So your posture and your setup is so important. Now to get the right hand below the left in its most natural way, what I do is I move my left hip slightly to the left, drop my right shoulder down, which encourages my right hand to go down and under. So in this setup, my hips are slightly forwards, my head now moves an inch behind the ball, my right shoulder is below my left because my right hand is below my left. For example, if I were to clap my hands together, to get my right hand below the left, if I did not move my hip, I would open up my shoulders, which is a very common fault. So to keep your shoulders in line, the knees in line and the feet in line, which is so important in alignment, we call this a straight method. You have to move your left hip to the left, get your right shoulder down below the left so that the right hand is underneath. You notice the left arm and shaft are in a straight line by doing that. Hands are slightly on top of the ball. My right elbow is in just a fraction. Remember, waggle your toes, butt is out, stay in motion all the time. It's so important that you don't freeze behind the ball. So many of us get behind the ball and we try and get in these positions and we just freeze. So stay soft, stay moving all the time. Let me talk about the real great things that this Swing Magic machine does. As you start the backswing, top of your left arm is close to your chest, and your checkpoint at waist level is twofold. One is you make sure the shaft or the shaft is absolutely plumb in line with the shaft lying through the tips of my toes of my feet. You notice that? So that's a dead straight line. For example, if the club got behind me, we would describe that as a layoff, which is a very common fault, which causes a very difficult shot because you either come in too inside on the way down and block it out, or you have to come over the top and then you hook the ball. One of the most common faults in the game. So in the initial takeoff, when you take the club back, we do not talk about the one-piece takeaway. And the reason why I don't like that is because one piece literally means what it says. Your wrists are locked, your hips have got to turn, and everything turns together. And that causes a stiffness and a bad rotation. What we like to do when you go back is to feel what we describe as the pulling force. We take the club back with the back of the right wrist, the right elbow, and the right shoulder. Very little motion in the legs. And when we go back, we're pushing down on the spring, pulling back with the right side. When we get to waist level, the 2 checkpoints I mentioned one to you. One was that the shaft is in a parallel line running right on top of the shaft through the tips of my shoes, and the other, most important of all, is the leading edge, which is the bottom line of the club. That's your aiming factor. Must be plumb to the ground. If the leading edge is pointing to the ground, it's a closed face. If the leading edge is pointing to the sky, it's an open face. So be very meticulous with this initial takeoff, please. And it is a takeoff when you swing back. Let's do this in slow motion one more time. You'll notice when I go back, and I'm going to talk about from the waist down here, so this is very important to watch what's going to happen, is when I go back, I don't move my knee in, I don't bring my heel off the ground, because what that does, it either makes me move off the ball, or sometimes if I move my knee forwards, I will reverse tilt and I'm in a terrible position. So to keep our levels, we keep the knees as steady as we can. We rotate around. We do not dip down. We do not move off the ball. So it's what we describe as rotation power by holding the knees very steady and creating a resistance with the left knee. So when I go back, working with this machine, you press down on the spring. What that does is it really controls your swing plane here, and you can actually feel exactly where it is. And this is the wonderful thing about this machine. You often see and read about what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't often feel. And this is the magic of Swing Magic. You can actually learn the feelings and get that mind to send the messages to the muscles to do exactly the same coordinated movements from time to time. Repetition is the secret here. The sequence of motion, which we'll get into as we go along. Again, this takeaway is so important. It's just like a plane taking off. Boy, if the flaps are wrong, you're going to go into the ground or whatever. So when we go back, we hold the knees. You'll notice in my setup, my knees are over my shoes. So by doing that, when I go back, I press down and load the spring up, and my right knee stays in its flexed position. So if you watch my leg motion when I go back, all you're seeing is a rotation of the upper part of the body, and obviously the hips have to turn. But we do not make a deliberate, conscious effort to turn the right hip. What that will do invariably is pull you way on the inside, and then you'll come over the top. Also, the magic of the swing machine is that without question, in all my teaching in the last 45 years, 9 out of 10 people have a tendency to lay off. They don't know where the club is going, they don't understand it. The genius of the swing magic machine teaches you these feelings. So please drill and practice and be patient to get this perfect. Leading edge is plumb to the ground at waist level. My palm is plumb to the ground. So when I go back and I get back to waist level, my palm is plumb and the leading edge is plumb. If I were to hold the club with my right hand, my left palm is plumb. So that is the action. When I go back, I can place the handle on my belly button and I'm turning without a massive hip rotation, and that's where I get to on the backswing. The leading edge is plumb to the ground. Now what would happen, and what does happen, is so many golfers go back and rotate the wrists and they've got an open club face. So many golfers go back and have told to take the club straight back, so they go back straight, the club face closes and the right elbow starts flying, and hence the syndrome of the flying elbow, and then you reroute on the way down. By turning back with the right shoulder and leading with the right side, we describe this as a pulling force. Remember, pulling force is much more controlled than a pushing force. So the sensation is you're cutting your body in half, and the right side is your leader, and the left side is your follower. For example, and I'll demonstrate this without the club. Look how easy it is for me to wind up turning my right shoulder. You'll notice where my left shoulder is. The bone structure of the shoulders is such that if I turn my left shoulder, it doesn't necessarily mean my right shoulder is turned. And hence, 9 out of 10 people coming over the top. We have a little drill. Put your right hand on top of your left arm. When you go back, let the right shoulder and the right elbow and everything turning together. Watch how this is a one piece, but not a one piece with the hips. It's a one piece with the shoulders and arms. The left arm is swinging close to the chest. Going back to the backswing again. You load it up, you stay in motion. Remember, don't freeze behind the ball. The beautiful thing about the swing machine is that I find that when I teach people, I'm much better off teaching them without using a golf ball. And the reason is the golf ball is an intimidation. You get behind it and you get all tense and you start fighting it. With this feeling and with a short club, which I'll explain the great benefits in this, you don't concentrate on the ball. And what you're really doing is concentrating on the actions of the body, what the body really does for you. And eventually, you get out of the intuitive mode and you get into the instinctive mode. And it's like anything in life. When you're a baby, you learn to walk and you think and you wobble around. You get on a bicycle and you have to think and you fall down. And eventually, when you ride that bicycle, you get on and you just ride it. Because we do it and we have learned to do it in the instinctive mode rather than the intuitive mode. But we have to discipline ourselves, just like little children do when we learn to use the motions of a golf swing. Not that we are little children, but the disciplines have to be there. So please remember that we're very intuitive in what we're doing at the moment. We're trying to create those feelings. And when you create those feelings, you'll just do it instinctively, and the muscles will do it automatically. They often say muscle memory. Well, from what I've been told is the brain has the memory and sends the messages to the muscles. So you're really training the mind and the sensations to feel. This is important. The three-dimensional part of learning is the feeling part. So this is what the Swing Magic Machine does and brings to you. Again, I have to stay on this takeaway, because if you go back and the first stage is incorrectly, it's like building a building. Your ground floor is wrong, and you put up a beautiful floor and a ceiling, it's going to fall down on the roof. So the fundamental is the correct takeaway when you start. It's like gold for us. So when we go back, when you get to waist level, the spring is fully compressed. This is important. It's fully compressed, and you notice how my right elbow is not up against the body, is extended, but my right elbow is towards my left elbow. So that creates a good angle.